Hello, I'm R-Tug with NPC Gaming Group, and let's get straight to the point. I love South Park: The Stick of Truth. This game is what unfettered creative minds should strive to produce, without any real paring to traditional tropes, whilst at the same time acknowledging those tropes exist through clever dialogue or through game mechanic. Clocking in at around 12 hours for my first playthrough, this, like most intriguing narratives, is really short, and even with the majority of side missions picked up alongside the main story quest, can be completed in a relatively short amount of time. Heading out from humble beginnings to wielding the mighty vibroblade and swiping down a wholly unexpected final boss, this game is a non-stop ride of in-your-face South Park stylized storytelling, complete with a message hidden within a convoluted explanation about some pop culture icon or major company. I went into this knowing that creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker had been disenfranchised with South Park-based games in the past, as they have been your typical movie abstractions, from some company just buying the intellectual property and putting out garbage for the game. So in my mind, there was no doubt that this was going to be something better, just by the step-by-step involvement in the scripting, voicing, and overseeing production by Matt Stone and Trey Parker. I, like many of the fans of South Park over the years, have come to expect a certain dark cynicism that comes along with anything touched by the duo, and from the get-go, you're not disappointed. As foretold by DeSluver Realty, you take on the role of the silent new kid who moves into the small mountain town of South Park. For as of yet unexplained reasons, you have fled to this quiet hamlet to escape capture from an unseen adversary, and have no memory of what led you to this point. Your parents tell you, get out of the house and go make some new friends, to become acclimatized to your new surroundings. And as you leave, outside you run into your local members of the KKK, that's the Kingdom of Koopa Keep, and are conscripted to join the mighty wizard King Cartman. His band, the Humans, are tasked with defending the mighty Stick of Truth from the evil marauding Drow Elves, as he who controls the stick controls the universe. From there you set out on what would be a typical situation of kids playing, and as per what is usual in the show, gets escalated to near cataclysmic proportions. Throughout the game, there are littered hundreds of references to the show, hidden and in plain sight, from Wild Wacky Action Bike to almost everyone in town having a copy of Butter's book, The Poop That Took a Pee. Anyone who is a long-standing fan of the franchise will find something in this game that will make them smile. And even if you're not a long-standing fan of the show, the edgy humor and dark plot twists bridge the gap between fan and non-fan alike. This game is absolutely gorgeous. When Stone and Parker set out to make their new game, they did so with the idea they were going to be completely hands-on involved in the project. That being said, they didn't just hand over their franchise to a company as per usual. They instead actively sought out development studios to pitch their idea of what they wanted in the game. They wanted it close to the show as humanly possible. So whipping up an animatic for the structure by which they wanted the game based, they talked to Obsidian Entertainment and began construction process on the Stick of Truth. Much to my joy and the joy of fans everywhere, we finally have a South Park game that isn't total garbage. This game looks spot on for the show. Everything from Kenny's home to even a hilarious bit about Canada paying homage to Final Fantasy. Coming from a visual perspective, this game has all the nuance of the show, capturing the overt simplicity of the character design with all the complexity of character interaction. There's not much to be said about the 3D element or the pixel density, as this game proves that if you visually stylize, there's not much to critique about the visual elements within the game. The fact that it didn't choose to exist in 3D is most likely a blessing, as most of the critique I would find about South Park games in the past is that they tried rendering 3D versions of their characters before, and I would find something off-putting about seeing characters that I would associate from a 2D perspective artificially placed in a 3D world. It was awkward. With regard to controls, there's not much to say. They're pretty straightforward. A spacebar does a majority of your interaction on the PC. W, A, S, and D move your character around, and character special attacks can be activated by hitting the F and G key, and changed with the Q and E key respectively. Most items that you can interact with are yellow and bright against the background, and when you turn left and when you turn right, interactions reflect quickly on the screen. Prompts come up to let you know when you're in front of something that can be interacted with, and they're always clear and concise. When you get into a fight, it all goes back to the old ATB standard. The battle system has 2 stages within a normal combat turn. First, you'll be allowed to do quick actions, such as healing from items, summons, or Kyle's rally, or Eric's magic missile respectively. Then begins Phase 2, where you actually have the choice of attacking with your ability your class has, performing melee attack, or using a ranged weapon. Should you choose to use a summon, however, you will not get both phases, and summons will only be used outside of boss battles, as they are typically one-hit kills.
I'm gonna do my war dance now!
One major complaint I had in the game is when you're going to recruit the goth kids, you're given a DDR-like interface. And it took me a little while to realize, at least on the PC, that instead of up, down, left, and right, the WASD keys that I've been using the entire time, it really wanted me to use the arrows. A mild frustration at best. Otherwise, I've not noticed very much in this game that could be construed as a control issue. As you might imagine, since Stone and Parker are involved, the game will have a fantastic musical score. And it does. There's not really much to be said here. The same thing that was achieved in South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut's movie soundtrack has been accomplished with this soundtrack. The music is clear, sometimes haunting, and evokes the fantasy-like setting of the game that you and your friends are currently playing. At times, to try and meet with the desire to make the game seem more like the show, occasionally you'll hear scores from the show make their way into key moments in dialogue, cementing the feeling of playing exactly like the show does.
Well, anyway, this child and I witnessed something last night, and I'd like you to hear his story. Go ahead, kid.
In certain shops, you can hear little clips from the show, such as Sexual Harassment Panda or the Vote and Die song. Whereas the overworld can have a track called Truth, Saint Truth, which does evoke a fantasy-like feel, if not for the mild distraction of Cartman singing in the beginning. It has some surprises scattered through the game, such as the Princess Kenny song, which is an altogether surprising addition to the game. When we considered the history of this game, and that it was wrought with some troubled waters when original publisher THQ went under, it's an astounding feat that the game was released at all. In March of 2012, Obsidian had laid off 20 to 30 employees involved with the Unnamed Future project, and some from the Stick of Truth team. Then in November 2012, the game was set to be delayed until April 30th, 2013. Subsequently, THQ had its issues with bankruptcy, where Ubisoft bought the rights for the game, where they announced that the game was going to be released in America December 10th, 2013. The game was again delayed for as of yet uncited reasons, presumably not to compete with holiday releases, and it was released March 4th, 2014. It has been quite some time since I actually sat down with the game, and I couldn't stop until I was finished. And with the Stick of Truth, I found myself unable to pry my fingers from my keyboard until the main narrative was over and done. All in all, I spent 12 hours in the game, doing side missions, exploring the reaches of the cold north, and exploring the depths of the crappy sewer system under South Park. I can say that for the life of the game, I found mild to moderate difficulty with the battle system, as I'm terrible with timing blocks, and I got close to death more times than I would care to admit. Overall, the Stick of Truth has left me with a feeling of fulfillment in single-player story narrative that I haven't felt in quite some time. Although at the $60 price point, I found it hit my wallet a bit harder than it should have. At release for a 10 to 12 hour narrative, I would have found the $30 price point range to be a more acceptable solution, akin to a Wolf Among Us or the Back to the Future episodic series, in that it was around $25 for 5 releases at around 10 to 12 hours of gameplay. Still, I found that investment was well worth it on my part. Conservative gamers might give this one a wait until it drops in Steam's summer sale or in Steam's fall sale. I'm R-Tug with NPC Gaming Group, and thanks for watching.
I think we have a right to know.
Mark?
Princess